Welcome, Richard, to the Vulnerable Voices podcast with your host, me. I'm very, very excited to have this chat with you today. I think it's been a long time coming. We connected a while back, actually. And the moment I started talking to you, started understanding you and your journey, I had to have you on the podcast to share because I think what you're doing now and your journey is incredible. It's very inspiring. And I think a lot of people will be interested to understand where you've got to, how you're helping people, and also what learnings and resources people can come away from your journey. And also talk about things, mental health, your own experiences with it, and just help the collective, which I know you're working hard on with your therapy sessions. So well done, you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and what brings you to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Yeah, and thanks for having me on as well. It's really great to be here. My name is Richard. I'm a clinical psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, working mostly with gay men around the world online, thanks to the power and technologies of Zoom. I use a neuroscience-based approach to psychotherapy and hypnotherapy, which is really a no bullshit approach. And the reason I'm here today to share my story is because not that long ago, actually about 5 years ago, I was sitting in the client's chair. I was really struggling with depression, anxiety. I was 25 kilos heavier, severe panic attacks, using drugs and alcohol to try and cope and trying to manage my situation. And really a lot changed for me when a close friend of mine died, and it gave me really a wake up call that I didn't know at the time that I really needed. So going to therapy and really changing my life through therapy, I just want to share my story to maybe encourage others who are living lives that they don't want to live, that to let them know it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to stay stuck. And yeah, that's why I'm here today.
I think it's incredible. And it's incredibly brave to openly admit that. And actually, as a man, and actually sharing that you were a client, you were sitting in that chair with a therapist, talking about your journey, sharing and being vulnerable. And I think that in itself is already a brave thing to share at the very beginning of this podcast. So thank you. I think it's already a great example of the strength that you've got. Tell me a little bit what it was like growing up for you, and your sense of belonging and some of the things and challenges you had to face growing up.
I think I grew up in a small coastal town in the west coast of Scotland. Um, Growing up in the 90s, from a sort of council estate area, sort of low to middle working class area of Scotland. I think a challenge for me was growing up gay, growing up knowing that you were different, um, especially in a time where it wasn't as readily accepted as it is today. And that definitely shaped who I who I was and who I became as a young adult. Um, but yeah, I come from a small town in Scotland, relatively normal upbringing, and I actually moved away from Scotland when I was pretty young at 18 and
Mhm.
moved to London when I was 18. I felt like there was going to be more opportunities for a young gay man in a city like London than there was in a small town in Scotland, where
Mm.
being gay wasn't openly spoken about. There was no gay bars. There was no community for gay guys, gay girls, or anybody who didn't fit the sort of heteronorm. So I escaped to London pretty quickly.
Mm. How was that feeling for you? Like, what sort of emotions were running through your mind, your body, moving at such a young age as well? There must have been some excitement as well. How did you feel? And then the reality of coming to London, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, it was very exciting. I mean, it kind of happened, the stars kind of aligned. At the time, I left school quite early, like 16, and I'd went into work straight away. I was working in, in the local town that I lived in, taxi rank, as taxi office controller. If you can imagine the old style microphones and, um, directing all the cabs around town. And I'd done that job for a couple of years, and the company I worked for sold to a bigger firm, and I got made redundant. So I got a little bit of redundancy money. And at the same time, a family member, my aunt who lives in London, was up visiting Scotland, visiting the birth of one of my cousins, and she said, "Why don't you come down to London with me? Why don't you come back with me?" And at the time, I'd just been made redundant from my job. I had a little bit of extra cash in my pocket from the redundancy money, and I sold my car. And I thought, okay, let's just go and see what happens. Um, and I don't know if I was maybe just young or naive, but I didn't I don't recall it feeling like a big risk at the time. It felt more exciting rather than risky. I suppose I always knew that Scotland's not a million miles away. It's not like moving to the other side of the world. If it all went tits up, I could always jump on the next plane or train and come home. So there was a lot of excitement, and a lot of excitement for the opportunities that might have been available for me here in London.
I love that. Definitely the excitement, the adrenaline rush, the thrill. You're somewhere new. You can almost like start fresh almost a little bit.
Mm.
And you're like, okay, who am I? Where do I want to explore? Where did you start going and exploring around London?
I think when I first moved to London, I was 18, so Soho was an obvious choice because of how famous it is for its gay culture and gay community and all the gay bars. So I probably would have went to Soho a lot, um, and to the various clubs and pubs of Soho. I found myself in South London quite a lot, and places like Clapham, which has got a heavy, vibrant gay community as well,
Yeah.
and other places like Shoreditch in East London. I I had so much fun as a young gay guy who just
As you
moved to
should.
London. I uh, I explored quite a lot of places and quite a lot of pubs and clubs, and yeah, I really got the chance to do all these things that my straight friends were doing back home, but I never really felt like I belonged in the straight clubs, in the same way. So
Mm.
to find more of a gay community was yeah, really exciting for a young gay boy.
You said a really good word there, sense of belonging.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people in life, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, however you want to identify, how you're exploring yourself, a sense of belonging is key for our mental health, isn't it? It's having a place that we feel safe, where we feel seen, where we feel understood, and you don't have to over explain yourself or who you are. People just get it.
mm,
How important was that for you, given sort of, in Scotland, it wasn't sort of talked about, it's not known, it's not you almost didn't feel like home. How was that sense of belonging for you? How did it sort of make you feel mentally, emotionally to almost find some people that are your people?
mm. I think we are tribal animals. We work best together in tribes when we're collaborating with each other. Thousands and thousands of years ago, our ancestors relied on the tribe, and we really relied on the tribe for survival, for shelter, for food, for safety. So our need to belong and our need to be part of community and part of the tribe is instinctual. It's primitive. It's programmed deep into the very nature of us as human beings. And when we don't have, or we don't necessarily feel that sense of belonging, it can feel very isolating, and it can almost feel like death's upon us, because at the end of the day, rejection from the tribe back in the cave days meant death. And we are still programmed to feel the same way today and to fear rejection the same way. So finding community, finding a group of friends, and there's a lot to be said for finding your own family. A lot of gay people um, make their own families and find their own communities, and that they maybe didn't have growing up, or couldn't have, or didn't experience. So speaking to all these other guys and learning that they're similar to me, they're the same as me, they've had the same experiences as me. It normalizes it. It makes you feel, again, part of that tribe, part of the community, accepted, and the opposite of what we fear most, which is, rejection.
Rejection hits hard. It definitely sucks when it does happen, because you can speak on how you feel when rejection's been, thrown at you and you faced it. For me personally, it's almost like I go into the self-blame first. And I used to go into that. What did I do? Have I done something? Do I need to change myself?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk me through some, like maybe an experience of rejection that really impacted your well-being and how you coped with it, whether it was healthy coping mechanisms or unhealthy coping mechanisms that come to mind for you?
Well, I suppose rejection it can feel like, again, like that life or death situation. Like, it can hurt, can be very painful, it can be quite physical as well. It can show up physically in the body as a sort of physical pain. Um, I think as well, I feel like I am slightly more sensitive to rejection than the average person. I think that's due to having ADHD and having a bit of rejection sensitivity there, which is quite common in ADHD brain.
Hmm.
Um, how to cope with rejection? I think the more rejection you experience, the less power it has over you. So putting yourself in positions where you're more likely to be rejected, almost challenging yourself to get rejected, is going to build your resilience. It's going to desensitize the part of your brain that's scanned for for danger, and puts you into fight, flight, freeze. So you can train yourself to fear rejection less, through sort of small steps, exposure therapy, if you like. Um, I went through a phase of tasking myself with small rejection missions. For example, asking for a discount in a store, or asking
Hmm.
to pet a stranger's dog. Things that might normally put you outside of your comfort zone, might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit awkward, and where you might
Mm.
hear the word no. And that's a really powerful exercise that anybody can do who fears rejection, to start desensitizing your brain to stop fearing rejection. Because at the end of the day, we don't rely on the tribe anymore. We don't live in the cave anymore, and rejection isn't going to kill us. So if we can teach our brain that, it changes everything then, because then we can start putting ourselves out there more, start taking healthier risks, and stop fearing rejection and start living a more happier, more fulfilling life.
I love that. It's well, for anyone watching, actually, we both tasked you with this challenge to go out there and do at least one thing where you're putting yourself in a position to get rejected. And I love this. Almost like the stars align, because I did this yesterday
Really?
with handing out some flyers for a workshop. And I purposely went to go hand them out knowing full well I'm going to get rejected, and how you respond to that. But you're so right. And the word you said there is the resilience. Our brains are very powerful in how we respond, but it's almost like if you keep giving yourself that stress, or you keep making that situational scenario more frequent and common, our brains go, huh, I've been through this, it's fine. Like,
Hmm.
you've got better tools to kind of move forward. It's almost like putting yourself in cold therapy and going, I hate this, I hate this. And then eventually, like, I kind of like it, I feel good afterwards. So I love that. And I think that's brilliant. It's such a good thing that you mentioned there. And it's true, you build strength and resilience, and our brains get used to coping in a healthier way. So I think hats off to you for putting yourself in those positions. I think it's incredibly brave. And
Thank you.
so then that must have meant your ability to face rejection gets stronger. You're out there, you're meeting people. And I know a part of your journey, you experienced a loss at some point in your journey, didn't you? With someone very important to you. Do you want
Mm.
to share about Miss Jason, the story there, and your relationship? How did you meet?
How did we meet? We met in Clapham in a gay bar, the Two Brewers in Clapham. Um, he worked there regularly. He was a performer there. Um, when we met, though, he was not in drag. He was a punter, and he was there just having a drink. And we got chatting, and immediately hit it off. You know, there was a very sort of special, instant connection. Um, he was a very special person. I loved being around him. Very funny, obviously very witty, and yeah, we became close friends straight away. It was quite an intense relationship, actually. We'd only just met, and you know, not long after that, we were going on holiday together, and it was as if I'd always known him. It was a very special relationship.
In that relationship, over time, obviously, you get closer, and the guard comes down as well as you feel safe around someone.
Hmm.
How was that feeling in terms of feeling safe and almost being yourself around someone and that relationship there?
Yeah, he made me feel very safe, um, very free of judgment. He was a very accepting person. I felt very protected by him. He was a bit older than me. Um, he was fiercely loyal. He wouldn't have anyone say a bad word about me. And he had a sort of mummy energy about him, a sort of paternal, maternal, fatherly, motherly, brotherly, sisterly, familial energy about him, which was quite unique. Um, he was the type of person that you would call up if the shit really did hit the fan and you needed to talk to someone. Um, so yeah, he definitely made me feel safe to be, you know, completely myself without fear of judgment. Yeah, Jason always gave me that space completely.
I love that. I think safety, especially when you have felt a disconnect of belonging, and there's been elements of rejection as well, and all those feelings, there is a bit of fear with connecting to anyone new. But I
Mm.
think the safety element that you mentioned is really key for anyone in dynamics where you're meeting new friends or family members or partners, or anyone new. It's your nervous system. How safe does your nervous system feel with them? And I
Hmm.
think you mentioned also you could just fully be yourself without the judgment. And it's so important, isn't it? Because no one knows what we've been through or what we're carrying, and to have someone who's that level of safety where it doesn't matter and they're there for you, and
Mhm.
the one that's with you and you're at rock bottom and you're like, okay, this is my go-to person. It's incredible. And I'm so glad you got to experience that kind of safety in someone. Take me on the journey of what then happened. And obviously, you lost him. And I'm really sorry that you went through that, because grief isn't the easiest thing to go through.
Mm.
How was that experience for you? What was the grief like for you? What was coming up for you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually?
Yeah, I think grief shocks us to our very core. For me, it was the first major death that I'd ever experienced. So it was shocking. He passed away suddenly as well at the age of 56. So young. Um,
Mm.
Leading up to his death, though, he'd had various health issues, quite significant health issues. He had a problem with his inner ear, which had led to a severe tinnitus and led to problems with his balance. He was very unwell. He had lost a lot of weight, and actually, they thought at that time he was going to pass away. But then he did make a miraculous recovery, started putting weight back on, um, regained sort of control over his balance to the extent where he could start working again, and did start working again. And probably he worked for a good 18 months, right up until his death. He died suddenly, heart attack. So it was sudden and unexpected. I think because we had already experienced almost losing him, we'd
Mm.
had a lot of conversations that maybe you might not have had the chance to get with somebody because he'd been so unwell. But because he'd made the recovery and he was back at work. In fact, the last time I saw him before he died was only a week or two before, and we were in the pub having a drink, and he was as right as rain, as funny as anything, and on perfect form, you know. So the shock was devastating. Um, I've woke up on a Tuesday morning, I think, quite early in the morning, and my mum had tried to call me, and which was unusual that she would try and call me that early in the morning. And I called her back, and she said, "Did you hear about Jason?" And I didn't know what she was talking about.
Mm.
And she said that she'd seen it on Facebook, and I went onto Facebook and I saw all these posts, and I knew it was true. He died on Monday night. And it was just absolute shock and disbelief. And to hear it on Facebook as well, or to sort of find out on Facebook, was really not the way you expect to hear that information either about, a really close friend. So that was quite shocking as well. And um, yeah, it was quite a modern way of receiving quite devastating news.
Yeah, I think firstly I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss. It's not an easy topic to talk about, especially when someone's so close to you. And then how you found out as well. It almost feels a little bit impersonal because we have so much access to the internet and
Mm,
news in the way it's kind of conveyed, and people who may not be as close are sharing this before someone who is close hears it and actually processes it.
mm,
It's almost like an added element of grief that you get, that it's public before it's even come to you, and you're finding out in multiple ways, people are commenting. So I can only imagine how much extra that would have been on top of just finding out that day. How
yeah.
did what were your thoughts or feelings when you'd heard the news and had a bit of time to actually let it sink in? Because sometimes grief comes as a shock, and initially you might be in a bit of denial, or you kind of numb out and you think, okay, you go into it is what it is, life happens, we'll be fine and move on, and you kind of numb it slightly. And everyone manages grief in different ways.
Mm.
How was that process for you for dealing with grief and the loss that you experienced?
Yeah, I think that was my first real experience with the death of a person, because I suppose grief is an emotional reaction, not not just to the loss of someone, but it can be the loss of something that's important to us. Um, so it was the first death that I had experienced, close death, and they say there's 5 stages of grief, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I think I can definitely say that I went through all 5 of those stages while grieving Jason. Physically, it shows up as a shortness of breath. The initial shock is devastating. It physically hurts.
Mm,
Emotionally, at the beginning, there's a lot of denial and a lot of not accepting that it's true. A lot of anger. Why did this happen? It's not fair. And
mm,
yeah, just a deep sense of loss, really. And coming to terms with the fact that you're never going to see that person again is very, very difficult. That you're never going to speak to them again, hear their voice, bump into them again. It's very, very difficult.
yeah, and it's such a good point that you mentioned the 5 stages, because I know anyone watching, including myself, experiencing loss of a person who's still physically here, but also loss of a person that's not physically here.
Mm-hmm.
The stages and the feelings do come up, and it's a good thing that you mentioned, because it's so important to actually acknowledge, like you just have, each one of those. And yes, it's anger, it's frustration, it's all of these mix of things that I feel we do have the tools and means to cope, but in those moments it can be really difficult. You can't see past those emotions. They're so predominant and strong, and it takes time to actually let them settle and find ways to move forward. Did you feel you were supported in that time? Did you have people you could lean on and chat to, or was it an isolating experience, but also it being public? It must have been like mixed feelings there. How was that for you?
Yes, it was very public. And I mean, he was a well loved character in the LGBT communities in Brighton and London. And he touched a lot of lives, impacted a lot of lives. So there was a sense of collective grief that was felt. And yeah, in the time of social media, there was a lot of public grieving as well. Um,
Mm,
I felt very isolated in that moment, especially hearing it, hearing the news the way that I did. It felt quite isolating.
mhm,
Um, I think eventually I did um, start talking more about it, reaching out to friends and family, and then seeing a lot of old friends as well at the funeral that, people that you've not crossed paths with for a while. They all come together, don't they, and sort of grieve together.
mm.
So that was quite a healing experience as well.
Um, I know, having spoken to you and before, we were talking about the element of a lot of people go into what they call rock bottom.
Uh,
And that rock bottom is it's not a fun place to be in, and I've been there myself, and we find ways to kind of navigate rock bottom. And rock bottom for me, and it might be different for you, which you can explain how that was for you. It felt like the earth had just sucked me in and it closed. It's like you have the ground, it's got a hole, I've gone into it, and then it's closed off, and then
mm,
you're left in this void. and the void is trying to figure out and process the emotions. It's feeling isolated in terms of who really gets what you're going through and who can I talk to. It's an element of how do I move forward? Is there light? Is the earth going to open up for me to surface? And also time. How long is this going to take for me to feel better or feel something other than the dark feelings that I'm feeling? What was rock bottom like for you? How would you describe that? And were there any coping mechanisms or things that you initially had leaned into, which naturally we can as humans? We're trying to survive. It's our brain's way of trying to protect us too in some aspect. What was
Mhm.
rock bottom like for you, and how did you navigate that?
For me, rock bottom was mentally very negative. So lots of negative self-talk, feelings of worthlessness, not being good enough, toxic behavioral patterns, so using substances to cope. I was feeling very sorry for myself, just very shit about myself. Physically, I was overweight, breathless, couldn't exercise, didn't exercise, eating crappy food, low energy, looking awful, feeling very low, disconnected with the world, feeling disconnected to the people around me.
Mm,
Yeah, fair to say my life was a complete mess. My work was suffering as a result. My relationships were suffering as a result. It was pretty awful.
mm. I can imagine, and thank you for sharing that because it's very vulnerable to admit that. But it's a massive part of how your journey has unfolded to where you are now, and that's the inspirational part of you didn't let it completely get you down, and we'll explore this a bit further and what you do now.
Hmm.
In those moments of trying to cope and in that sort of void, were there people that noticed your shift in energy and how you're feeling about yourself? Did people check in? And if they did, how did that make you feel? And if they didn't, did you reach out to other means to try and get that support?
I think one experience that comes straight to mind is when an old manager of mine took me to one side one day and said, you know, I don't know what's going on with you, but it needs to stop. And she said it in a very caring and loving way. And that really hit home for me that maybe I had a problem and I wasn't coping as well with life in this way that I thought I was. I mean, I was 25 kilos heavier because I was drinking a lot of alcohol. And then that's a lot of calories, isn't it? And as a result of a hangover the next day, you're not really in the mindset to be eating healthily or planning a healthy diet. Um, and it was affecting work, my energy levels, and yeah, having that person in particular sort of put a mirror up to my face was a real kick up the ass that I needed at that time. And I had close friends around me as well. Having said
Mhm.
that, a lot of my friendship circle at the time was partaking in the same sort of behaviours
Mm.
and using a lot of drugs and alcohol. So stepping away from that, actually you do lose some friends in the process. And it gets a little bit harder to have those connections that we need so much.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've all been there where a harsh truth from someone you care about is really hard to digest initially. And you're like, whoa, this is painful.
Yeah.
Why? But then you realize those people that are giving you the harsh truth is because they actually value and love you to a higher extent, where they're like,
Mm.
hey, I actually see you. I know you don't belong in this void for this long. Yes, I support you, but there there is a way out, and you need to find a way somehow to get back to who you really are, because this
Mhm.
isn't you. It's a part of your journey, yes, but we've all been there where there's someone who sits in front of you as your mirror, like you said, and I love it because everyone's a mirror of us at some point, to
Yeah.
go, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And we need to get you moving back to a better place. And also the people and circle you hang around, they enable you in whatever dynamic you're in. So like you said, they were enabling you in that dynamic of the drinking and the habits and behaviors that maybe weren't so healthy, and stepping away from that. It is scary. It's almost like detaching an old identity and trying to reform another one, isn't it? And
Mhm.
that's scary too, because it's another form of loss of I'm losing people again. And then you can spiral into, you know, I'm here again. I keep losing. I'm keep losing. Like, when is it going to get better? When you had those truths and when you really sat with yourself, which again is incredibly brave and strong, because it's scary. It is really scary to sit and question yourself and go, right, and start again. What were your first sort of immediate steps, even if they're really small, to kind of step away, that you could share with us?
To step away from
From the people around you, but then also step forward in the right direction to try and feel better, or make the right movements to kind of heal a little bit.
definitely, I think sort of getting outside, getting into nature, getting plenty of positive action, um, walking, running has been a game changer for me. Exercise actually has been a
Mhm.
massive game changer for regulating my emotions, allowing me to feel more intellectually in control. You know, when we exercise and take positive actions, we're stimulating serotonin and endorphins and dopamine and feel good hormones that allow us to take intellectual control, which was a big game changer for me.
Mm,
Um, and surrounding yourself with people who do care about you and do value you and love and support you, um, and who offer that same sort of safety and safe space where you can be yourself and be vulnerable without fear of
mm,
judgment that Jason offered. And thankfully I do have plenty of people like that still in my life.
mm,
Um so positive action, positive interaction, and really challenging your thoughts and your beliefs, challenging your negative self talk and reframing negative beliefs has taking those three sort of actions, positive action, interaction, and thinking has been a big game changer for me to
yeah, it's
help
almost
me
like
regain that intellectual control and start making those changes, you know?
a retraining our minds, and the mindsets shift, and
Yeah.
like you said, the environment shift as well. You started doing things where you're getting healthy dopamine and the right sort of hormones as well. Uh, You mentioned that you had gone to therapy, and, as a male as well, to go to therapy, it's initially scary. It's confronting. It's quite vulnerable, that I think societally it's not always encouraged. How was therapy for you? Was it something that you were excited about but nervous, or was it completely like, I want to try but I'm not ready? Did you feel like that experience for you was validating?
Mm. Well, Jason had always advocated for therapy. He adored his therapist and would talk about his therapist even in his stage act. He was a big advocate for psychotherapy, and I'd never really taken it seriously. And he'd always said to me that, "Oh, you should find a his therapist's name is Martin." He said, "Everyone needs a Martin. You should find yourself a Martin." But I was relying on GP prescribed antidepressants, which
Mhm.
weren't really working. and telling myself that that was just going to be enough. So soon after his funeral, I took his advice and I found a Martin, found a therapist. I think the loss as well had plunged me deeper into depression. But going to therapy had really given me something that I hadn't felt for quite a while, a bit of hope. And it wasn't like everything was just magically fixed, but after just 6 sessions, I had a lot more clarity, felt a lot lighter. And that's something that I hadn't experienced for like a long time, quite a while. So I felt like I had my life back in my hands from going to therapy and seeking professional help and taking Jason's advice.
Well done for taking that move and actually doing it and taking accountability. I think that in itself needs to be celebrated. So if we're going to pause and we're going to go well done,
Mm.
because actually it's so brave. And even in this day and age, I think it's still so scary. But I think the word that you mentioned here about hope, actually, hopefully people watching come away feeling hopeful that these things are really beneficial for us. Did
hmm
you initially click with your therapist? Because I know I went through a few in order to find the right one. What was that process like for you?
I I done quite a bit of research. I knew that I wanted to work with a gay male therapist because I thought a gay guy maybe would be able to relate to me on a bit deeper level than maybe a straight guy or a straight woman would. So I was looking specifically for someone who had a little bit of the same lived experience as me. That wasn't that easy to find, even in London. So I noticed there was a gap in the market and that the community is underserved. Um, I did, in the end, approach 3 separate therapists and had 3 consultations, and I went with the third consultation, the third therapist that I found. Um, and the main reason for that was that we just vibed. We had a rapport pretty instantly, and I could tell that he was the right therapist for me, and he was, and he'd done a really good job. But yeah, finding a therapist that you like, that you have a rapport with, and you can relate to is super, super important. So I would definitely advise, most therapists offer a free consultation, half an hour or an hour, to see if you're a good fit and if they're going to be a good fit for you and their approach is a good fit for you. So do your research, read their bios, go on their website, have a look at their social media, and have a consultation call and see if they're a good fit.
How long did you have therapy for? So you noticed like actual differences in how you're feeling, the hopefulness after 6 sessions. Did it stop
Yeah,
there or did you make an effort to continue with therapy?
I have stopped it there. However, since training as a therapist and qualifying as a psychotherapist, I am actively at the moment on the hunt for a new therapist. Um, so I strongly believe in personal therapy, and um, it's something that I want to explore and continue. So I'm actually in the lookout for a therapist right now. So if there's any watching,
Anyone watching?
pop me a
I'll pop all the details for anyone to connect. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm looking for some therapy to, because I think it's great just to, even if you go once a month for a bit of a top up, and you can talk to somebody about a professional who's trained to listen and to empathize and to hold a non-judgmental space and support you, because I'm a human being as well, and I still get low days, still suffer, and have problems. So therapy is such a helpful tool. I would be silly not to be looking into it again. So I'm looking for another therapist as we speak.
I hope you find one soon. We'll put the word out there too, because you deserve a really good person to chat to. And I think you're right. It's important to continuously have someone to speak to. It's almost like I feel like if we were had the resources to have someone throughout our life just that were with us and we could vent to and talk to and feel safe and seen, I think it's really important. But I also feel as skills as humans, we can also develop those skills like curiosity, deep curiosity. We can develop empathy and compassion. And I think with all the resources that we have and these like communities and coaches and mentors and therapists, we can also learn from what we learn and spread that out into the world and just be kind humans to each other. We have that
Yeah.
ability. I feel like these skills are underused slightly, and you can counter me if you think otherwise. But as humanity, I really do think curiosity and empathy is it's gone down, and it's quite scary because that's what connects us. That's what makes us feel human. What are your thoughts on that and society as a whole and those qualities?
My thoughts on society as a whole.
With
Sorry.
empathy and curiosity.
Yeah. I I think there's been a sort of lack of empathy, maybe, in a modern day, and I think that maybe has something to do with the rise of social media. Um, and
Mm,
I see a lot of hate online, and a lot of judgment, and trolling, and yeah, non-empathetic sort of behavior,
mm,
and social media and the rise of social media and technology, I think, has played a massive role in that. We definitely should be kinder to each other. Um, you know, that old saying, if you've got nothing good to say, then don't say it at all, really
eh,
springs to mind. And, they used to say that sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me. But, we know nowadays that that's not true. And
mm,
the the rise of young people sadly taking their lives to online bullying, and it just really shows me that there's been quite a lack of empathy in the zeitgeist of the nation a little bit. But so
mhm.
we definitely could be doing with being kinder to one another.
I love that message. It's just be kind, be curious, almost like look at people as if you're looking at yourself. Would you want someone to treat you that way? Would you want to be spoken to that way? And, really, like you said, pause and be silent if you have nothing to say. I think it's really important. Silence speaks volumes, isn't it? But you're one of the
Hmm.
beautiful human beings who have actually taken a lot of learnings from your life, from therapy, from, just wanting to spread lots of love, joy, and empathy and curiosity into the world with the work that you're doing. How
Hmm.
did you come into being a therapist yourself? How was that sort of experience for you, learning and then becoming qualified? Yeah, what kickstarted that sort of journey, and how has it been for you?
I think, yeah, going through personal therapy myself changed me as a person, but it also sort of revealed a sort of calling, if you like. Um, I've always been fascinated by psychology, the brain, the human condition. Um, so I knew hold on, this is what I should be doing. In fact, this is definitely what I should be doing. And I knew that I should retrain. So that's what I did. I retrained, and it's been a great experience. Training as a therapist was amazing. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, I've always been fascinated with psychology, the brain. So learning about all this stuff really didn't feel like work for me at all. It was so much fun. And that's when I knew that this is definitely something that I should be doing, because when you can go to work and it doesn't really feel like work, then you know you're sort of onto something. So I qualified last year in June,
Yay.
and yes, thank you. And since I've been very successful, I've been very lucky, and I'm so thankful. I've seen loads of clients and been really lucky to work with some really amazing clients, and been receiving really great feedback and making an impact and changing people's lives, and not just their lives, but the lives of the people around them, which is amazing, something that I've always wanted to do. And it's very rewarding to see people coming in at the depths of despair and anxiety and depression and in the pits, and to see them come out the other side much better with more stability and emotional
Mm,
regulation.
mm.
So it's not just changing their lives, but the lives of other people as well, and that's what's very rewarding.
Yeah, I know you're having a massive ripple effect in the community, and you've got a huge community online as well, and people are finding you. And I think what you said, their purpose-driven work is just, I love people doing purpose-driven work because it's what your soul is actually really connected to. It's something that is so like deeply ingrained in you as a person to be able to help. It's almost like you're designed for this kind of work. And it is unfortunate and sad that you've had such a heavy journey to have those experiences. But I feel like people with real strength are able to take that and turn it into something incredible to help others. And so I just wanted to take a minute just to say, really proud of what you're doing. And I'm sure the feedback you're getting is great. And I hope more clients come to you because I think it's needed. And you're also targeting um, like a pool that is niche that didn't exist when you needed it. So you're creating that. You're literally like the leader, the creator in this. You're like, you know what, something needs to change, and you're the change maker here. So I love it. And I'll be sharing about you to my friends in the community because I think it's really important that they see the work that you do and also have therapy in a safe space with you. So I just wanted to say well done and you should be really proud. What is the difference between psychotherapy and hypnotherapy for people that don't know?
Hmm. Yeah, so I think hypnotherapy is a type of psychotherapy. It's a branch of psychotherapy, if you like.
Uh-huh.
Um, Psychotherapy is a sort of broad umbrella term that we use um, to describe all different type of talking therapies. Um, so hypnotherapy works with the subconscious mind, and in a clinical hypnotherapy session, the client would be guided into a deeply relaxed state of trance. And in that state, the subconscious mind is wide open, so we can start firing in some positive suggestions and start working at the subconscious level. And psychotherapy, talk therapy is working more at the conscious level where we're talking like we are right now. So talking
Yeah.
therapy. Um, but yeah, hypnotherapy is a branch of psychotherapy, and it's used in conjunction with talking therapy.
Amazing. I love that. How would you or have you come across people who may be skeptical or the non-believers or the kind of avoidance when it comes to this kind of level of work and introspection? What would you advise or say to them when it comes to the work that you're doing and the impact you're making?
So if you're considering therapy and you're maybe afraid to go to therapy or not sure that it's going to work, or maybe you have some reservations, I would say do some research. Um, there's plenty of examples online. There's still definitely that fear and stigma, fear of judgment, maybe fear of being seen as broken or crazy, um,
Mm,
about going to therapy. And because the mind loves what's familiar, there's also the fear of change. So um,
mm,
many times people will be scared to change, and that can be a big block for people coming to psychotherapy. For men, particularly gay men, there's often an added sort of layer of I should be able to handle this myself, or there's a shame about needing help. Like
mm,
maybe it makes you less of a man or weak. And then often practically people don't know what to expect, and maybe they have some outdated ideas about sort of lying on a couch, talking about your problems and your childhood for years, which is
mm,
not necessarily the case. And then, of course, they think then it's going to be expensive and very time consuming and painful.
mm.
And these are quite common misconceptions that I hear for people that are thinking about therapy.
I love that. All great tips. And it's so true. It just, what you said is removing some of that fear as well. And it's completely normal to feel these feelings as well. But I think
Yeah,
if you're curious about it and something's calling you to give it a go, you're not inclined to stay in it. You're not inclined to be trapped in it, and you can leave at any
abs-
point.
absolutely. You don't have to share
Mm,
everything in the first session. You can be as open as you want to be. You don't have to say anything that you don't want to say. You don't have to go anywhere that you don't want to go. And just know that the person in front of you is trained to listen, to be
mm,
empathetic, to be non-judgmental, and they just want to help you. But do your research, have a few consultations, find the right therapist for you, the person that you feel is going to work best with you. Um, and if something doesn't feel right, you can always try someone else.
100%. And while we're on that note, where can people find you? Because I think a lot of people will be drawn to your lovely energy, your calm, your non-judgmental, and the space that you're in for gay men in terms of wanting to help them and support them because there wasn't that support when you needed it. Where can people find you, connect with you? And then I have one last question before we wrap off too.
Yep, you can find me on social media. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Richard Taylor Therapy. I share mental health videos sort of daily, mainly surrounding gay mental health topics. You can find me on my website, richardtaylortherapy.com, when you can find out more about my neuroscience based sort of no bullshit approach. I just want to help as many gay guys who are in a similar position as I was as possible. And it's clear that our community is underserved. And I recognized that when I was looking for a therapist for myself. So trying to find a gay therapist, a gay male therapist, it's not that easy. But when I found the right guy, I recognise there's a gap in the market, and our community is definitely underserved here. So if I can bridge that gap even just a little bit and have an impact on gay men's lives and the lives of those around them, then for me that will be a life worth living. So yeah, I offer individual therapy sessions online via Zoom, specialising in anxiety, depression, addiction, all the unique challenges that gay men face. So if you're a gay guy and looking for a therapist who gets it and who's been there and who's worn the t-shirt and been sick down the t-shirt, then you can reach out to me, find me on my social media handles, or reach out to me in person. I'd love to talk to you.
I will definitely be putting all your handles on our episode in the YouTube description box. I'll be putting it on my social media. So there is no excuse to not connect to Richard after this episode goes live. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you because I think people like you aren't appreciated enough. So thank you on behalf of everyone you've helped and for yourself. Two questions now that have popped to mind. Since you've been doing therapy and some like healthy habits and things that you've sort of adopted in your new journey, is there anything creative that you started to explore in terms of managing some of the inner chatter or just processing emotions in a healthier way?
Creative. I I listen to I love music. And I love singing specifically.
Yeah.
I find singing, humming, listening to music, it's such a healing experience for me. Um, it goes back to, I think, our ancestors again as well, and we would have been round a campfire singing and humming, and um, we get feel good hormones and neurotransmitters when we listen to music and
Mhm.
we engage our senses like that. Um, but even creating the content that I put out online and that creative journey has been quite interesting because it's brought up a lot of old things from my past and forced me to look at things again through the lens of a therapist and how I can then package that up and box that up and into a creation that I then put out into the world that can then help people. So that's the sort of creative avenue that I'm enjoying more recently, I'd say.
Mm. I love
Um,
that. You've got a good mix there. So some of it's like visual, and then you've got the music, which is sound and vibration. And it's just a combination that calms the nervous system, isn't it? And it's so primal with the music when you touched on, because our bodies are vibration. You're humming, and it sends like a signal that says, I am safe. And all these things that
yeah,
you're doing is, I am safe. And I love that. What kind of music what's your music taste? What are you listening to these
I have
days?
I have such an eclectic mix of music. So every type of genre, every type of music. At the moment, I'm in terms of popular music. There's Olivia Dean, who I can't stop listening to that girl. She just won a Grammy. Um, beautiful, beautiful voice. But such a wide, eclectic mix from rock to pop to country to lo-fi and binaural beats, relaxing ambient meditation music, all
Mm.
sorts of music. I just love music.
Anything that feels good, isn't it? It hits the soul, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
this is good.
yeah.
my, my last question is, if you were sat opposite your 3-year-old self, what would you say to him?
It's all going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Just keep your chin up. And I'll never forget what a English teacher of mine once said. She said, "Don't let the bastards grind you down." So I would probably say that. Don't let the bastards grind you down.
I love that. That's going to stick in my head. That's what I'm going to say to myself. I love it. An English teacher, you know. I love that. Well, honestly, you'll be so proud of you and your journey and how far you've come. Don't give up.
Thank you.
We need people like you on this planet. But I just wanted to say thank you for being brave and vulnerable with me. I cannot wait for your episode to go live. I cannot wait for people to hear your story and also connect and hopefully bring some more clients to you too. So I just want to say a huge thank you. You've been incredible to have on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
What face?